Hello and welcome to Thursday night's Hotline Live with Record Sport. My name is Daniel Caw and I'm over the moon to be joined, not delighted tonight, over the moon to be joined by the one and only Keith Jackson and Record Sport's Scott McDermott. Scott, how's it going?
I'm good, Daniel, yourself?
I'm absolutely, this is my favourite time of the day, Scott. Seeing your face. This is, look,
especially
I don't want to slag off any of the other Hotline Live regulars. There's a lot of people saying, a lot of buzz that this might be the dream team.
I know why Scott's so excited and this is the favourite time of the day for him, because he's sitting in the house and he can smell his dinner getting me. I'm sitting here starving.
I'm up in the loft. It's kind of wafting its way up here, so we better hurry.
Well, look, we'll run through it then for the sake of Scott's dinner. Best place.
Don't keep the wee man for his dinner, whatever you do. Yeah, he's a pleasant wee guy.
That in the Euros.
Oh, I'm telling you, angry. You've not seen the likes of it.
I've got a big chicken kebab waiting for me, Jacko.
That's all class.
Why does that not surprise me, wee man? That's brilliant. You be you, Scotty.
Well, look, best place for us to start is the kind of refereeing controversy that's kicked off in the last couple of days. Willie Collumn has come out and publicly addressed some of the controversial calls that have happened. We're only 5 games into the Premiership season, but already several high-profile calls. Obviously, we'll discuss it a bit more in depth, but today we spoke to former Grade 1 referee Des Roach.
I did.
And he certainly had some thoughts on the issue.
Well, I think, I started off, Daniel, just by asking him, making the point that I'm encouraged by the fact that that Willie Collumb's taking a high profile. He's not opening himself up to scrutiny, really, but he is prepared to communicate, and I think that's a good starting point. And I just asked Des if the referee fraternity feel the same way.
I think he's got to be applauded. He did come out right at the start. He set his stall out saying that it's going to be transparent. He wants this to be a new era for refereeing, and he has. He's came out. He's done what he said he's going to do. He's taken the bold step of going in front of the media, given trying to lay down what he's been saying.
Limited. He's limiting it to not putting himself in a room with a bunch of guys. He's just putting out a bit of YouTube stuff. But you know what? Not going to criticise. It's better than nout. Yeah.
So what I would say is he's came out at the right time, because let's be honest, we're a couple of games in, we've had an international break. People's ideas and followings have maybe went elsewhere the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
There's not been terribly much major controversy that's affected the outcomes of games that's been there so far. As you quite rightly said, he's done it with an in-house media group. He's then went on a national or regional broadcaster with the same guy that interviewed him for the national media group. But he's came across very well, but it's very easy to come across very well when there's really not a lot you can be hung for. So not taking anything away from him, he's put himself front and centre. Let's see what happens a couple of months down the road when the weather changes, games are changing, points are changing. I've got a feeling John Moss might be doing those interviews by then.
Well, that's exactly it, isn't it? It's great to come out when everyone's hunky-dory. When there's a howitzer going off, that's when things... Yeah, he might be like Homer Simpson gift disappearing back into the bush.
Well, hopefully not. Listen, if you've set your stall out, you've got to keep your stall out.
Well, do you know what? And I think he does deserve a wee bit of credit, because
absolutely,
I think that he said that this was going to be his way. He's been true to his word so far, and I think, if I get it right, but you'll know more than me, in terms of when Willie Collumn was out there on the pitch last season, I don't think the directions and the guidelines that were coming down from above at the SFA were helping anybody. I think they were confusing the picture. I think referees resented some of the stuff that they were being told that they had to implement, because they were the guys ultimately who carried the can and looked silly for it. And I think he's tried his best, being that he was on the pitch 2 minutes ago, to give out a level of instruction that he would have understood and appreciated when he was still out there in the middle of the park. I mean, am I right with that? Is that what your reading is as well, Des?
I think what I would say is, I think there's a two-pronged answer to this one. I think, and unfortunately, the last couple of years, Crawford Allen's a lovely guy. I've worked with Collum numerous times. I don't think he was a strong enough leader. I don't think he had a public profile, unlike his predecessors, Mr. Dallas, etc. And again, he came from a background where he's also very successful in his career in his banking industry, but there wasn't enough forthcomings from him.
Yeah.
I don't know how much meetings and dialogue yourself and other national journalists had with him. I wouldn't have thought it'd be terribly many. I think that you used to see that he was all over the world. I think he was in America at one point. There was an Old Firm game on or something like that, where I don't think there was a strong enough leadership coming from the SFA at that point. And like Willie's doing now, he's coming out showing a directive, and it's his job now, it's his gig. But the second part approach is, I think Willie, I've known him in the past, I don't know him now. I think Willie's trying to change the perception of him, because people had the persona of him as a referee and how he was and how he behaved and how he acted and how his mannerisms and how his facial expressions. It's quite interesting. They spoke about body language last night at one point. But I think Willie's trying to show the opposite side of him now.
There's a human side. Yeah, he's not just a robot. I mean, he was very school teachery in the way he went about officiating, wasn't he? Yeah,
and unfortunately, that's not the way that you always got on. However, it worked for Willie. He got to a very high level.
It didn't really.
Well, not really. Well, it did in FIFA and UEFA eyes. But I think he's now trying to show the human side to him. That's probably quite a good way of saying it. Look, guys, I'm not the wee bad angry guy that he thought always was. And let's be honest, Willie's a married man and he's got children and he's got a job to hold down. But this is a new chapter for him, and I think he's trying to take it as obviously as professional as he can.
I tell you what, if I was him, I would have jumped at this life raft as well, because some of the stuff that he was being subjected to, some of the stuff that was going unsaid, but was there in between the lines, statements from Rangers, etc., etc. I thought it was beyond the pale, and that's another reason why I wish him well. But I do get the feeling that because he was only on the pitch 5 minutes ago, that it's going to help. And I'm sure now. You tell me, you've got your finger on the pulse. But you'll hear what the officials are saying. You'll hear how they were feeling working under Crawford Allen and the advice that we're getting, the guidelines that are being set down. I'm very keen to know, are our top level officials now a great deal happier than they were last season with what's been handed down to them from the sixth floor at Hampden?
I can't give you a verbatim answer on it. Some people the rumblings I'm hearing are happy with it. That there is a new broom that's coming in and sweeping aside. Other people are less than happy. I know that there is a new ballot system. So previously, people used to get an email giving us our 6 next weeks. It wouldn't give us the game, but it would tell you which dates you're expected to be on. That's gone now. Right. So potentially referees are living their life not knowing what they're doing on a Saturday and planning family things until a Tuesday morning, Tuesday afternoon when they get their fixture.
All right.
But I understand the SFA are doing that, or my thinking the SFA are doing that is because it buys them that little bit of time that if a Keith Jackson or a Des Roach or Steve Conroy had a bad game on Saturday, they don't necessarily, it's not public that they will be refereeing the next week. Never mind putting them in a Premier League game, or they've had a mistake and it's obvious that now they're doing a Division 2 game, League 2 game. That's not public. So they're almost managing their things in-house, which I can understand.
I'll stop you there, Des, because I never had a bad game on a Saturday. So that just wasn't going to be.
You must be the only one.
Des, one thing I did want to touch on before we let you go, the stuff about Tom Lawrence and the referee shouting "Don't tackle, Tom." Seems to have caused a bit of consternation and surprise. I think fans out there thinking this sounds more like coaching than refereeing. Talk me through that.
Again, there's two sides to it. So talking on the pitch to players is constant. Whether it's me running by you, hey, come on Keith, how you doing? Or Keith, good pass, or don't be silly. That goes on. The coaching saying don't tackle. Now, I don't agree with that because that is coaching. In that situation, referees have done this for years, and I'm quite surprised that it's causing a wee bit of consternation and discourses. if you see something happening, I would quite often, and Steve and Craig Thompson, even going back to Kenny Clark, John Rowbotham, John Underhill, and I work with ex-professionals. These guys are constantly talking to players. Be careful, stand up, don't dive in, no shirt pulling, watch what you're doing. These things go on all the time. That's called in-game management. In-game, you're managing a scenario. You're not telling a player, don't make that 30-yard pass, don't tackle. No, you
Keep
cannot
us off
say
his
that.
line.
Aye, keep us off his line. Have a go. Have a go. Depending on which team it's playing, obviously, some people would say. But no, it would always be if I'm getting up the left-hand side of an attacking player and the right back's ushering the ball out, I would be saying to the left winger, don't dive in, stand up, don't dive in. Right? That's fine. Because what you're doing, you're actually trying to manage two potential situations here. One, you're protecting the player that's potentially going to end up on a sore one.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also managing the player who is the potentially an aggressor. He may already be on a yellow card. You're saying stand up, because what you're doing is you're protecting him to stay on the field of play. So you're managing a situation. I don't know how many times I've ran by a player and said, look, that's your last one. You've had enough. I've spoken to you. Or you've ran by the captain and said, let him know. He's not listening to me. He's been giving me too much earache. The next time he comes back at me, I'm going to have to deal with it. And managers, I'm really surprised that Willie's bringing this out as a new concept that's been brought in, because it's been there for ages. And I say it's in-game management. It's been known forever and a day. Players expect it and respect it as well.
Former Grade 1 referee Des Roach there. Before we get your take on it, guys, we've had a lot of comments sent in on Record Sports social media outlets, and I should say if you're watching at home, get involved in the chat. I'll start with this one from Gordon Lyle. It says, just as well Tiny Wharton wasn't mic'd up, he talked to the players throughout the game. That's how good refs keep control without having to dish out cards.
Tiny Wharton's this guy got a computer? Tiny Wharton.
So he's gone back a while there. Kev McIntyre, I use it often during amateur games with players who I'm familiar with. No, folks, watch the hands, etc. If I know the players, and I know a lot of them from refereeing them for years, I'll use their names and in some occasions nicknames. It's called game and man management. But David Joyce finishes with this.
Come on, Tav, you're having a nightmare here. I'll give you a penalty in a minute.
It's absolutely incredible for an official to aid a player to remain on the park due to him committing offences. This ref's got to go immediately. I mean, I don't know what you guys think. I think that's so bizarre, the whole thing. That's really odd.
I think it's weird. But you speak to referees, and referees do have this thing where they want to keep 11 players on the pitch, and I understand that. It's a better spectacle and it's a better football match, etc., etc. But I'm just not sure how comfortable I am with, well, that guy's on a booking, I better tell him to calm down. Well, it's that guy's fault if he's on a booking and he throws himself into a tackle. I don't know how comfortable I am with that. I'll be honest, Scott. I mean, I must admit, I'd never experienced, I've never seen anything like that or heard it.
I agree with you. When I seen that, and then I seen the reaction on social media, and the immediate reaction was people saying, "Oh no, this happens all the time, and this happens in loads of games." That particular shout with Tom Lawrence, I mean, I must admit, I've never heard that for a referee in a football park. I mean, listen, I'm going back a wee bit, obviously, but I played in hundreds of games when I was younger, amateur level, kind of youth at different clubs and stuff like that. And of course, refs would talk to you during the game. I get that, and they would call you your name, and they would talk to you about tackles you'd made, or as Jacko said, you better watch, or one more and you'll be off and all that. I get the fact that players, referees will have kind of relationships and talk to players, but the Lawrence one, I've never heard that shout on a football park for a referee in my life. I found that really bizarre, I must admit.
We've got this comment in here as well from Drew Heaps, who makes the point. Ross Hardy, who was the referee in question, he got his coaching badges, he's never kicked a ball in his life, and he's coaching a pro football player. I think as well, see if you were Tom Lawrence, that would just make you kind of hesitate. Like if the ref's like, "Oh, don't do that," you'd be like,
it would have the opposite effect on me. I'd be more inclined to make the tackle.
But it's not very fair in Ross County, is it?
No, that's why I don't feel comfortable with it. But then you speak to Des Roach, and he said, this secret coaching has been going on for years.
Secret coaching.
That's what it is.
Aye.
Secret coaching is secret because we didn't know about it.
No, what gets me, I mean, one of the things that I took away for the show with Willie Collumn was, right, and you're getting all the VAR audio, I came away from it thinking, who would want to be a referee these days?
I know.
How
Is
confused?
that the first time that thought has occurred?
Well, but listen, you didn't have all the voices in your ear, right? The whole VAR thing. I mean, referees are now having to talk into that mic constantly for 90 minutes. Every wee action, the ref's got to be shouting, "Oh, I'm going to give a foul," or "It's a goal," or "Is he off?" So, as if that's not confusing enough, this referee then adds on to that. He's going to start trying to tell players what to do. I just found that. I mean, as if you've not got enough in your plate. You're running about telling players not to tackle.
Slap the ball through to big Dessers.
Oh, I thought it was bizarre, honestly.
Said nobody ever.
No, I think it's absolutely bizarre, and thanks very much to Des for coming on. He's a good guy.
He's great. He's our resident man in black.
Aye, absolutely.
He'll do it for me.
Look, time's against us, so I'll kind of power on. The other kind of news in a very quiet week, I think, has to be said, in Scottish football now the international week is over. We had in Record Sport Online earlier on today that Alasdair Johnston is set to be offered a new long-term deal at Celtic, a bumper new deal. We've had plenty of comments on that, and I'll dive right into them. David Jones, one of the best signings in recent years. Good to see the club looking after him, not before time. Future captain material. Chris Crawford saying Johnston deserves every penny. His hard work goes unnoticed most games because he's rock solid. Chris McGovern says this: what an engine Johnston has. He's been a great signing. Seems to get it right from the first game. And sorry, just finally, Nick O'Donnell is tipping him to be wanted by the likes of Juventus or Man United.
It's very specific.
Very specific, I know.
Must know something.
Scott, we discussed this a little bit on last night's Hotline Live. Michael Gannon said that he reckons that Johnston could be Celtic's next £20 million sale. I mean, or certainly one of them. Do you rate him that highly?
Could be. I mean, we think of what Juranovic went for. I would argue Johnston. I think Johnston's probably a better player than Juranovic. He's been a terrific addition for them. I was speaking to somebody last week. Actually, we were talking about like players that had come to Scotland for the MLS. And we were talking about the kind of standard, and a lot of players have come for the MLS, I think, and have struggled in Scotland. But he's probably been the best. I mean, somebody will correct me certainly, but in recent times, it feels like Alasdair Johnston has been one of, if not the best player to come for the MLS, but into Scottish football. Just so solid and reliable defensively. He's got a brilliant kind of personality on the pitch. That's on the pitch and off it. I mean, media-wise, he's brilliant for us to deal with as well. There's always a great interview in him, and it's just interesting when you compare. There's also a lot of talk about James Tavernier just now as well at Rangers, and when you hear people kind of back James Tavernier because of the amount of goals and assists, and we've said a million times, Tavernier's numbers for a right back are obviously incredible, but I don't think MD would argue with the fact that Johnston's a better defender, and I suppose that is the great debate. I mean, when I hear people saying about Tavernier and the goals and assists, I say to them, but would you rather have an Alasdair Johnston who gets you one goal a season, but can help you win titles and trophies? Do you know what I mean? And that, listen, it's a difficult balance and it is a debate, but I certainly think for Celtic, who are a team obviously where they've got goals all over the pitch, middle to front, which you could maybe argue Rangers haven't had in recent years, but that's why Johnston's been a brilliant signing for them. And I think that guy's right. If he keeps doing what he's doing, there will be interest in him, and that's why Celtic will be looking to tie him down in this new deal.
But that's the thing, isn't it, about Celtic doing their housework? They're run so well when you compare to the situation which comes up time and time again at Rangers when they're losing players at the end of the contract, as free agents, or selling them for buttons. Alasdair Johnston looks as if he could be the next big one.
Aye.
So Celtic go, don't mess about, go get him tied down a big contract, protect yourself, and you're you're getting indemnity now, because once he signs that bit of paper, you can ask what you want.
Aye.
And Celtic are making it clear now that they're not prepared to sell low. They want to set low ball offers. So I think there's every reason to think that Alasdair Johnston could be yet another one where they've brought him in for pennies and sold him for fortunes.
Scott makes a good point there, that I definitely think at some point last season when James Tavernier was scoring, what did he get, 25 goals all in? I think a lot of people would have picked Tavernier over Johnston. I definitely don't think that's the case now. I don't think there'll be many that go for Tavernier.
Well, I completely agree. Alasdair Johnston, but and you need to look at Alasdair Johnston's assists as well.
Aye.
Because, I mean, all right, he might not score the amount that Tavernier does, but he creates a lot down that right-hand side.
Aye.
I think the other thing, we're comparing the two clubs and player trading models, etc., etc. Sick of hearing about it. But if Rangers were serious, if Rangers were a serious outfit, I think it was Ross Wilson that was in charge of player trading model at the time. See the season that Tavernier skippered Rangers to the Europa League final and was the top scorer in the competition. He was pulling up trees all over Europe.
Mm-hmm.
That's, if you've got a player trading model, and by the way, 6 months previous to, they sold Nathan Patterson, cashed in a guy that hardly played for the first team for 12 million. Celtic's player trading model would be, he's a Gary, you've been brilliant, but do you know what? We've got this young guy that's going to be even better.
Aye.
Step aside, even though you're a fan's hero, in comes Kieran Tierney. If Rangers were really serious about a player trading model, they should have cashed in Tavernier that summer. They should have said to Nathan Patterson in the January, you're not going anywhere, son, because you're our first choice right back for the start of the season. And I don't know what you made for James Tavernier, from the sale of James Tavernier at that summer. But I'm telling you, I think it would be a big number.
It would have been 28, 29. You'd have made at least, 10, 15 million?
Well, if we're talking about
top scorer in Europa League.
The money for exactly a right back.
Aye.
I think Rangers could have named a price for him at that point.
Aye.
And they could have kept Nathan Patterson, did exactly what Celtic did with Kieran Tierney, put him in the top team, get 3 full seasons out of him,
Aye.
and then you're not selling him to Everton for £12 million.
You get a lot more.
You're selling him to Arsenal for 25.
Aye.
That is the way. But it's so obvious, it's blindingly obvious. And Rangers are sitting there scratching their head wondering, how can we get a player trading model? I mean, it's actually criminal when you look at it.
Aye. No, I completely agree. Scott, talking about Rangers, Keith mentioned there he's kind of sick of going on about the player trading model. Do you know what I'm sick of going on about? Ianis Hagi, right?
Aye.
But this is the story that just won't go away. I thought when the transfer window shut that maybe Hagi would move on, kind of get his move. But his former agents come out today and said that Rangers are asking for just shy of £3 million for him. I mean, I don't know how much truth there is in that. Some of the responses we've had on social media, Edward McGuigan, his wages treble if he plays another game, get him out. I don't think it quite trebles. We had that exclusive story, didn't we, a few weeks ago on the Hotline Live.
Yeah.
It's an extra £6,000 a week.
£6,000, yeah. There's also a suggestion that his previous club in Belgium would be due a significant sum as well. So
Aye.
that makes it more believable if it is only £6,000.
Aye.
But listen, I understand why Rangers fans are asking the question.
Aye.
Because they're looking at what they've got in the pitch.
Aye.
And they can't fathom why Hagi has been, treated. He's actually been treated terribly.
Mm-hmm.
Sent away to train with the kids, play with the B team. And Rangers fans aren't daft. They're looking at what they do have on that pitch. And they know that there's every chance that if Hagi was out there, he'd improve them.
Aye. Stephen Kilpatrick says as well, 10 million at least for Hagi. He's just got to the last 16 of the Euros with Romania.
But he can't get a game for a Rangers team that's plummeting down the league. I mean, that's the point. I mean, we've talked about it, Scott. If you put him in the first team, then at least you're saying, no, he's a valuable player to us.
Aye.
If you're not even letting him train with the first team and he's getting sent out to play at the weekend with the kids, you're actually saying he's not good enough to get into our first team. So how can you possibly charge premium price for that?
Exactly. How bad is your starting position when you're coming to haggling or bargaining when whoever the buying club might be, they know that you've got no intention of playing the guy.
I mean, we'll give you £1 million, shut up, sit down.
Exactly. I mean, how can Rangers demand any sort of fee for a guy that they've publicly claimed will not play in the manager's publicly come out and says he won't play in the first team again? I mean, the Rangers have Jack was saying about how they've treated him. They have literally decreased his value day by day throughout the whole summer by everything they've done. I mean, if Rangers are going to get any kind of fee for him, the guy they should be thanking is the Romania manager, because he's the only guy that's keeping Hagi's value.
But they've missed that ship sailed, Scott. And again, typical Rangers, they've got a guy, the last man standing from the SPFL at the Euros. He's playing well. He's attracting a bit of interest. He's playing on a decent Romania side, and he's one of the main creative forces in that side. And the first thing that Rangers do is bring him back and say, "You train with the kids." Honestly,
And see,
it is absolutely mental.
See as well, Scott. I mean, I know we're not kidding on his Maradona, right? But I think there's no doubt he would improve the Rangers starting 11 right now. I mean, do you think that's fair?
I agree. I'm not saying he's going to be Rangers' saviour this season, but is he better than Tom Lawrence, Ross McCausland, Rabbi Matondo, Scott Wright before he left Kieran Dowell? Certainly. For me, he's a better player than all of them. So, listen, we know the thing about the wages and that, but Hagi has come out and said or hinted that he'd be more than happy to sit down with Rangers and try and sort something out. There's always a way round this, and I agree with Jack. I just don't understand Rangers' cast iron stubbornness over this, not to give the guy a game. I mean, I just don't get it. He's been at the Euros. He's a talented player. I know they've signed Bayrami to play in the number 10 role, but I agree, Daniel. I think he would add something to the Rangers team. And as we've touched on, even if it's for 6 months to add value to him and he can show what he can do, and then you can get rid of him in the summer.
He's also versatile, Scott. He's not just a guy that plays the number 10. He can play anywhere across the three. He's a talented boy. And I tell you something else. He seems to me to have the right character. He's not a prima donna. He's not been throwing his toys out the pram. He's not. He doesn't cause any problems. He seems to me to be a really, really decent guy and a really good professional. And I honestly, it's almost as if I don't know. I honestly, I can't get my head around it.
I know.
Rangers have got a talented player there, and they're treating him like a dog.
Yeah. Look at how I know it's slightly different, right? Because of a kind of disciplinary issue, but look at the way Jimmy Tilleen at Aberdeen has dealt with the Duke situation. Yeah. So Duke goes on strike for 3 months in the summer, thinking he's getting a move, and terrible behaviour, towards his teammates, to the club, the fans, whatever. New manager comes in, has to deal with it immediately, shows his authority, shows who's boss, disciplines him, and Duke suffers for that, doesn't get any kind of move away. But now that the transfer window's finished, I quite like the way Tilleen has basically offered that kind of olive branch and said, right, come on then, if you want to come in, you'll work hard, there's players ahead of you, but if you get back to your best and show me you're hungry enough, you can add something to my team. And I think, listen, Aberdeen will probably sell Duke in the summer, or he'll probably go. But I actually think he'll come back into that Aberdeen squad now hungrier and
with fire under him.
Aye, a real fire under him to go and show people what he can do, and almost kind of make it up to the fans and his teammates. And I know it's slightly different with Hagi, but I get the feeling if Rangers could sit down with him and sort this out and get him back in the squad, I think he would have that same fire. He could actually give Rangers a real spark for the next part of the season.
Scotty, the incredible thing for me is not only is he a talented player, but he's actually come up with a sort of out of the box solution. He's smarter than the guys that he's dealing with. What he's suggesting is, see this wage rise, let's defer it. Why don't, if the club hasn't got the money to pay an extra £6,000, I get that. Defer it. Let's see where we are in December. You've got a Europa League campaign. You're going to make a right few quid out of that. I'm happy to defer that wage rise, and you can pay me at the end. You can pay me when I leave. You can pay me in January. Pay me whenever. Just let me play football.
Aye.
Guys screaming out to play football.
Aye. In the interest of fairness, we've been very pro Hagi, but Paul Lynch watching on Facebook, he's not happy with you, Scott. He says, Hagi playing well, 22 games with Alaves, 2 goals, 2 assists. Slow on a week in the jail. His previous club are also due an additional payment, which you mentioned, Keith. Scott needs to give his head a wobble. And then he goes on and says, he asked the agent to find
I like this guy.
asked his agent to find him a club at the start of the Euros, and no one wanted him. I don't think that takes away from the fact he would definitely, I think, improve the Rangers team, and he's just an asset sitting there doing nothing.
At a time when Rangers are facing a dearth in talent.
And as Paul says, might not have had a great. No one's kidding on. He's Cristiano Ronaldo.
No,
but
is he better than what the manager has available?
Aye, he could
That's the
contribute.
question.
And also, he went. With all due respect, he went to Alaves immediately after a serious injury.
Aye,
Yeah.
The whole point of that loan was just to get training again, get some game time, and of course, it didn't go as well as he'd hoped. No, it's a difficult league to go at the best of times, but I think he went there to try and get fit again and recover for this injury. So sure, the idea should have been, as soon as he comes back from injury, he goes on loan and we get him back fully fit. That's happened. He's not played for the reasons we've discussed, and he's went away to the Euros and looked absolutely fine for Romania, and did so just last week in the international break.
I tell you what, what's worse than that, he probably went to Spain with a major confidence crisis, having been told you're getting sacrificed because we want to bring Sam Lammers in.
Aye, and Kieran Dowell.
Sorry, Sam, if you're watching.
How's that going to affect your mentality?
But Paul Lynch at home, there you go, take that. Right, Scott, club football's back this weekend. I know you guys like a flutter. I think that's fair to say.
I don't.
You don't, no?
You're
Oh, do you not, no?
No.
I do,
Scott,
but I
once a
need
year.
I need
Once a year,
expert advice
Cheltenham.
now.
All right. Well, listen, we are lucky enough to have a colleague who
really knows his stuff.
he knows his stuff. The one and only Craig Swan. I caught up with him earlier today to try and find out some of the tips now that club football is back at the weekend. And here's what he had to say.
Swanee, I'm just back a holiday that frankly I couldn't afford. If you could be so kind as to give me some winning bets for this weekend, you'd be doing me, my bank balance and my girlfriend's mood a massive help.
And my own, I should say, Daniel, to be perfectly honest with you, after some disappointing days on the racetrack this week. Yeah, I've got a few bets. There's been a couple of prices that have jumped out. Obviously, there's a few short price ones kicking around, but we'll try and avoid them and see if we can get a bit more value. There's 3 in Scotland that jump out. There's probably another 3 south of the border. But if we take the Scottish ones first, going into the Championship, Livingston have started the season pretty well. 2 draws, 2 wins, and they look at odds of around 8-11 against Hamilton. Quite a good bet. You could argue that David Martindale's team have shown some of their best form away from home this season, and they've won their last 2 on the road against Spartans and Wraith. But the home form it's almost certain to pick up in the weeks ahead. And they're a strong team, Livingston, and you would imagine they would be too strong for Hamilton. Certainly, odds of 8-11. That was of interest. In League One, Alloa, goals have been a bit of a problem for Alloa over the sort of 2-3 games prior to last weekend, but they sure snapped out of that in the final stages at Firhill last weekend when they knocked Partick Thistle out of the SPL Trust Trophy. In fairness to Inverness, they found a bit of form themselves. They've won their last couple of games, but both of them were at home, and they've found it a little bit more difficult on the road this season. So if you also take into the fact that in the 5 league games, or the 5 games prior to last weekend when for Alloa, they've drawn 3 of the 5 league games. Inverness have drawn 3 of their 5, so 23-10 would probably attract a few of the draw punters. But at the odds against, shade of odds against 11-10 Alloa, they look probably like a better bet. And in League 2, probably the strongest fancy of the weekend in the Scottish leagues would be East Fife as they go to Stranraer. Stranraer haven't managed to win a game in the league this season so far, and East Fife are going well. We actually thought on the betting show last week that East Fife might be able to spring a surprise against Dunfermline in the SPFL Trust Trophy, but the Pars were just too strong. But there wasn't any disgrace in that. And if you go back to the 5 games prior to that, East Fife had scored 17 goals, and Stranraer lost 5 at home last weekend to Annan. So on that basis, you would have to say East Fife at just a bit of odds on at 5-6 are probably the best bet in Scotland. Listen, you can single them, double them, do whatever you like. The treble's about 6-1. So
I think the treble for that 6-1 is brilliant odds. And see, just going back to the Alloa one as well. I know I was going to say to you, Swanee, that maybe the draw was more attractive, but you look at Alloa at home, better than evens. I know they've only scored 5 goals, but this season so far. But I think better than evens at home. You can't ask for fairer than that. And before I go into the bets,
these things, Daniel, are price related. You know, if Alloa were 46, you wouldn't look at it, and by the same time, there's other teams you would look at that you would take if they were better. It's just like that everywhere. We're trying to find things that are price related.
Value.
Yeah.
Before we go on to the bets down south, we're obviously still in international break. I should have actually opened up the betting corner with this, Swanee, but the betting live got an absolute cracker of a bet up during the international break. 25-1, Scott McTominay to score first against Portugal.
Yeah, caps doff to my esteemed colleague Fraser Mackey. That was a sensational shout from him.
Did you have it on?
No, just a little bit. Just a bit. Well, Fraser convinced me, so I had to get involved. I must say it was more hope than expectation. So we didn't have long to wait for the payout, did we? Inside 10 minutes and the pockets are filled. So that was happening. Some of the more unpatriotic among us, I will name no names, decided Portugal at even money were then about to go on and win the game. So it was in running. So shame on me, but you've got to bet with your head, not your heart.
Listen, if you're watching at home, that's all I'm saying. 25-1. I mentioned the bets down south, Swanee. What's going on down there?
A couple of interesting ones I thought in the English Championship at the weekend. Watford have started the season really well under Tom Cleverley. He's been nominated. He was nominated for the Manager of the Month through the first month. Really, really good. Coventry were fancied to do well at the start of the season, but they haven't really got going under Mark Robins. Listen, he's been in this boat a million times, Mark Robins. He's been a brilliant manager for Coventry, and he will no doubt haul them up the table. But there's prices of the one firm has got a standout 7-4 about Watford at Vicarage Road, which just seems really, really big given the way that Watford have started the season. So that had to be one that was looked at. Sunderland are more obvious. Obviously, they're absolutely flying. They've made a brilliant start, probably better than a lot of people would have expected. Having come up and you know the fixtures haven't been easy. They've had Burnley, they were away at Portsmouth, so it's not been simple for them, but they've been unblemished so far in the league, and they've only lost one goal in the 4 games. They go to Plymouth at the weekend. It's another long trek. Wayne Rooney, fabulous player. I saw him last week looking as though the management game's done nothing for his figure. When he played for Man United's legends, but he's taking this job at Plymouth really seriously. But you have to say it's not started great for him. They're decent enough in their own patch, and it won't be easy for Sunderland, but they're struggling for goals, Plymouth, and Sunderland, as we've mentioned, have been really, really tight in defence. So again, just a shade of odds on 5-6. Sunderland looked worth a bet. And if you go down a league to League One, Charlton, they go to Shrewsbury and they're in good form. Michael Appleton's team, they won last time out against Wickham. They won 3-1. Shrewsbury have lost 4 of their 5 games so far. Charlton's record, even at the end of last season, really, really good. Even money looks a price for them away from home. So again, you can single them, you can double them, depending on what you prefer. Obviously, Watford would be a bet for single punters. That's a big price, but the treble in England pays 8-1 for those 3. So
nice one. Going back to that Watford one, Swanee, almost double your money. Feels like you're printing money almost. I mean, that feels
much better than doubling your money.
Aye, of course. Sorry, of course, it is.
I was surprised when I saw the price. I had to check it and double check it, and I don't think it'll last.
I realised that. I honestly should go on record. I'm the worst gambler on this side of the hemisphere, but
you might not even be the worst gambler on this show.
Well, I mean, I'm joined by Keith Jackson most nights, so we all know he's definitely bottom of the table. But based on very little, based on clips I've seen and the way Watford have started, they've played 5, won 4 of them. 14-1 to finish in the top 2 in the Championship. I think that's maybe worth a tenner. I think that's not bad odds. I know it's a bear pit, the Championship, but I don't know.
It is, and Tom Cleverley's very highly thought. I mean, he spoke really well when he took over in the job about what he intended to do and what sort of system of play he wanted to instill into the team, and he seems to have done it very, very early on. So they've started great. They obviously had that blip just before the international break, but apart from that, it's been really, really good. And he would hope for our pockets to pick it up again on Saturday.
Absolutely. Well, Swanee, I hope to see you again next week, unless these bets have come in so much that we're on a beach somewhere. I'm not sure this is going to get me my Cayman Islands dream just yet. But well, listen, anyone watching at home, if you stick every week, it will.
Sorry?
If you stick with it every week, you will, definitely. That's the message. Swanee, thanks very much.
No bother. All the best, guys.
Cheers.
How good is he, by the way?
He is really
brilliant.
He knows his stuff. And I should say, I said there,
making me think I'm going to stick a bet on.
He said there at the end, Scott, I said we might be away on a beach next week. I didn't mean us together. we're good friends. I love Swanee, but you know, not like that.
I'm just-
Scott,
I'm
have you got
I don't know what are you saying.
just we'll have separate beaches.
You
We'll win
understand that we're living in a woke world these days. I don't know what it is that you're trying to say.
I'm saying we'll win that much.
You're getting us
From his
cancelled.
tips-
You'll get us cancelled.
From his tips, we'll have 2 beaches, right?
I just
Scott,
can't get over the fact Swanee was having a pop at Wayne Rooney for having a beer belly there.
Yours pot sign kettle.
Scott, have you got any tips for the weekend? Anything jump
Oh,
out at you, put you in the spot?
I know, I've hardly even looked. Off the top of my head, I don't know what
Whatever
price.
Swanee says.
Well, I'm assuming Aberdeen. I'm assuming Aberdeen will be odds on, Daniel. But if you can get anything close to even money, Aberdeen at home to Motherwell, I think I fancy Aberdeen to keep this run going.
Aye, but Jimmy Telling's just won Manager of the Month, Scotty. So you know what happens next? Motherwell away.
I know. Listen, the fixtures have been so kind to him and Aberdeen. I think that's taken nothing away from him. But he's did a great run of fixtures for a new manager coming into that job. But listen, at home, the wee bit of momentum they've got. Well, last time out getting that late winner, Kevin Nisbet scoring. No, he'd fancy that will give him a bit of confidence. So I've not looked at the price, but I would take Aberdeen at home to Motherwell, and of course that would put them 8 points clear of Rangers in the league, with Rangers going to Tannadice on Sunday. So massive game for Aberdeen.
I fancy Dundee United to get something as well on Sunday against Rangers.
I don't think that'd be the world's worst bet, but then I am the world's worst. I mean, you're saying you're not the worst gambler on this side of the hen. You're not even the worst gambler on this side of this desk. So, but yes, I don't think that it would be too bold a move to say that Dundee United have got every chance of getting a result, possibly a point.
Mm-hmm. And Aberdeen too. I think that's a shoe-in, Scott. That brings us to the end of tonight's Hotline Live with Record Sport. I should say, if you're watching at home and you contributed in the comments, thank you very much. We will be back on Sunday to do it all again following that Dundee United Rangers game, and we hope you can join us then. Scott, it's always a pleasure.
Top man. Cheers, Daniel.
Kebab time.
Can't wait.
Thanks for watching at home. Cheers.